Good morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this AI ethics and privacy safeguarding the digital age. My name is David. I'm your data scientist, and I'll be covering the AI ethics and privacy. This is a session hosted by Sunset Learning Institute. So a little bit about your speaker today. My name is David. I'm a multi-cloud AI chief executive engineer. Like many of you, I've been in the forefront of the tech industry since the 90s. Now I'm really showing my age. I am an experienced engineer across multiple cloud leaders from Microsoft, Amazon, Google. You could see some, not all, of my different certifications. To not boast, I was maintaining over 47 different certifications. I'm still flabbergasted at that amount. That's a lot of what? Training. So don't forget, it's important that I mention training and skilling. Nevertheless, I'm also a certified engineer and authorized instructor for Microsoft. Not only Microsoft, but also for Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud. So I will communicate with you unbiased their technologies and how they're supporting artificial intelligence and what other technologies that they are providing that'll provide us a way to what? Help us with AI ethics and privacy. I'm also from Harvard. That's my alma mater. I'm a data scientist. Anyone here a data scientist? Anyone for a data scientist in the room? Anyone from the early 2000s when you had to wear multiple hats, when you were the machine learning engineer, the data scientist, the data engineer, practically everything, right? Okay. However, I strongly want to emphasize that while I am a data scientist, security is paramount. That's why I'm sharing with you one of my certificates, where in that certification, you could see it says security engineer. I also hold the same for AWS and for Google. Now, mind you, as we go over some of these topics, it's important you to understand that there is security and then there is compliance. And while sometimes we say them and they're interchangeable, they are different, and there is a distinction, and I will make that distinction clear as we go through this. So remember, you will, at the end, have to understand that both are needed. All right, let's move forward. Enough about me. Let's talk about our agenda, right? So as you can see in this 1 hour, we're going to talk about the introduction to AI and what is sensitive data, the ethical challenges, concerns, compliance, right? Best practices. And let's not forget that when we introduce AI, we also tackle generative AI. So that's our agenda for today. So as most of you know, AI is rapidly evolving. It's a technology, as most of you know, has the potential to continue to transform our lives. However, the use, or some would say the abuse of AI raises ethical and privacy concerns, particularly when sensitive data is involved. In this webinar, we provide an overview. And it's important to note that it is an overview to fill in the gaps, to provide intermediate to advanced, so that way you can create a working solution. I humbly implore all of you, at the end of the session, don't disconnect. Let me share with you what other resources that you should consider in order for you not only to use AI, but also when building AI, what are some of the things we have to consider to ensure we have a responsible AI solution? So we'll provide an overview in this webinar about AI, its applications. We'll define sensitive data and explain the importance of addressing ethical and privacy concerns. So, an overview of AI. AI involves the use of intelligent machines that can perform tasks that typically require, as most of us know, human intelligence, such as learning, problem solving, decision making. Most of us are familiar with vision, right? Translation. There's so many applications. So AI is used in a variety of applications, including at a high level in healthcare, finance, transportation, and more. So sensitive data refers to any information that can be used to identify an individual or reveal sensitive information. Examples of sensitive data can include, but not be limited to, personal health information, financial data, and biometric data. Now, the importance of addressing ethical and privacy concerns, particularly when sensitive data is involved, it's important to address these concerns to ensure, this is a key, that the benefits of AI are realized while maintaining and minimizing the risks to individuals and to the broader society at large. Let's take a look at not just artificial intelligence, the new kid on the block, so to speak, generative AI. As most of you know, when we talk about AI rapidly evolving in the last several years, most are right now trying to use or implement generative AI. And it has the potential to transform, right, a wide range of industries. But just like the traditional AI, generative AI does raise ethical considerations. So let's discuss some of the challenges of generative AI and ethical guidelines for its development. So, as most of you know, generative AI uses machine learning algorithms, and this is key. It uses content data to generate new content data, whether it's images, videos, or text, that is data. And while most of us know this technology has the potential benefits, it raises concerns around the potential for misuse. So, preventing misuse of generative AI tools would require a company culture that is ready to adopt and embrace safeguards. Preventing the misuse is essential for protecting against the potential harm that the tools can cause. So, implementing appropriate safeguards, such as access control, monitoring, education, is key. Developing generative AI in an ethical and responsible manner will require adherence to ethical guidelines. Now, these guidelines, let me rephrase, standards are global that should be designed to ensure that the benefits of generative AI are realized while minimizing those risks. But it's important to understand that if we are using or developing, that it is transparent, that we can, in its transparency, understand if it is adhering to fairness. And at some point, we have to consider what is fairness. What is privacy? Is it something that's subjective? While still valuable, there should be something that's objective that has set a standard. So, as we mentioned, one of the important aspects of ethical challenges of AI in data management, some of you mentioned something about privacy, right? Data privacy. Consider if the data is not private, it's again, if there is no system or mechanism in place, right? Data privacy. Let's move forward. So when we talk about fairness, what we're really referring to is AI algorithms can be biased. So when we need fairness, we need to ascertain if the algorithm is biased. You're probably thinking, David, that sounds like a data scientist course where we need to perform exploratory data analysis, and everyone here needs to be master's or a doctorate degree in data science. Now, while it's important, whether you're in compliance or the distinction I'm trying to make eventually, or security, that you work with domain experts. So it's a collaborative effort, everyone. And you're not working alone. And you'll understand this as we get closer to reviewing that standard that we should follow as a guideline. So we can truly, with transparency, we can account for the data that the algorithm is using. And if the data is disproportionate, if there is more in one particular data value, if there's more in that, then that will influence. So the data truly is what makes the algorithm biased. So it's not the algorithm, it's what? The data. It's always the data, isn't it, everyone? So in this slide that I'm sharing about bias and fairness algorithms, an algorithm can be biased, but it's biased because of the data, and that can lead to unfair outcomes. Consider if the algorithm's data is biased, it can impact a certain group of people. So it's important to ensure that AI algorithms are, let me rephrase the word algorithms, that AI, as you know them, systems are transparent, accountable. That way we can determine if the data is free from bias. To do what? To minimize the risk of things like discrimination. Transparency and accountability. So as we start to delve into the AI system and we bring up terms like transparency and accountability, it's important to know that an AI infrastructure, what you call a system, is truly not a black box. Admittedly, there are many articles that refer to it, but it's the algorithm that someone may not understand that may be deemed the black box. But as we just learned from a data scientist, it's the data that will influence the algorithm. The algorithm itself is simply math. So transparency in an AI system will help us hold all the components and those who have a stake in it accountable. So transparency and accountability are important principles in the development and deployment of AI systems. AI systems should be designed in a way that is transparent so that individuals that are using, not just building, can understand the purpose of that AI system. Let's refer to it as that AI assistant. So that AI system is what's powering your AI assistant. And that system should be designed in a way that's transparent. So we can understand how it works and it's accountable. So that way we can what? Perhaps redress if something goes wrong. So it's not just the use of AI or misuse, but it's also how it's being implemented, thus deploying. So the deployment of AI involves important ethical considerations. Ethical decision-making frameworks help ensure that AI is deployed in a way that is ethical and respectful of individual rights and freedoms. Now, AI applications involve the collection, utilization, and analysis of large amounts of personal data. This raises important privacy concerns. Let's explore these concerns and discuss best practices for protecting personal data in AI applications. So in this slide titled Data Collection and Consent Issues, as we just uttered, we are collecting large amounts of data. So collecting that personal data without consent, as most of us know, is occurring, is a major privacy concern. AI applications should be designed in a way that is transparent about data collection and utilization. And individuals should be given the choice to opt out of data collection if desired. Consider this. Most of you have used AI assistants for generating vast amounts of content from existing content. While subscribing to these AI assistants, there are disclaimers with agreements that you should review in its entirety to understand its privacy concerns and its data collection. If the AI assistant that you are utilizing does not provide you this measure, then this is a decision that you need to take and not lightly before utilizing said service. A perfect example of using these types of technologies, which most of you have already started to leverage for personal and for business purposes, is using generative AI to help you in code development. I'm not sure if many of you have seen or used, but AI is not only a chat bot, but also being used in coding. So the very developers that are developing the AI assistants that you're using that are collecting data, collecting data, those very development tools are also using AI. So when you provide compliance, and eventually through those compliance controls where you require a security expert to implement a security control, while the compliance expert is going to verify that the security expert has completed the control action to ensure and drive assurances and provide evidence that the cybersecurity expert actually complied with the requirement. See the distinction? So you'll need not just security, but you need compliance to ensure that the security expert is actually enforcing the control. But that needs to be done what? End to end. If the very tools that are being used to create AI assistants are also using it, then we should also ensure transparency and accountability end to end. So, perfect example of one of those tools, look carefully, I'm going to share with you, is a tool known as, for developers, VS Code. And what I'm sharing with you, I have built in to VS Code here, Amazon Q, that is an AI assistant from AWS. I also have configured, I also have installed a GitHub Copilot. What is the NIST AI RMF governance function? So the very AI tools are built into development environments. And a perfect example, as I write this line of code, we're importing specific Python packages that are going to, before we start to train and test the data that will be used in either traditional AI or in generative AI large language models, look to the right of this Python code, and you can see that it's reading from what? A data set. It's reading from a data set. And that data could be local. That data can be in AWS, in a simple storage service. That data can be in a Microsoft Azure storage account. That data could also be stored in a Google Cloud storage. But it's important to note that it's data and it's stored somewhere. And in order for us to provide transparency and accountability, we need data lineage. Data lineage. So what if the data is something even more important? Consider the health sector. And in that health sector, we have data that, as an example, what if it's the data is used to help us with diabetes? Again, a data set of diabetes. Look at the columns: age, sex, body mass, again, BMI, BP, blood pressure. Consider Shouldn't we be able to use AI to help us during development? So that way we can use Copilot that built in is using Chat GPT. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Chat GPT. How many of you are familiar with GPT or Chat GPT? Use the chat window. Post it number 1 if you're familiar with Chat GPT. If you're familiar with it, here's some insight. Microsoft's Copilot has Chat GPT built in. So we can use the very AI assistants to help us understand the purpose of the actual code. So this is just me using AI to provide insight to what it's doing. So we understand. It was simply me just right-clicking and go to Copilot. So as we start to use AI, we also have to learn how to use it securely. We have to also learn how to use it to understand our data. Why? So we can further learn how to fix. Look at this. Where, again, we'll be able to make changes just by getting assistance from the AI. And the AI can help us so we can better understand. Why? Because the distribution of specific data may be influencing the model to be what? Unfair, to be biased. But this is something that you'll learn if you get skilled and you start either in security or in compliance, working with your domain experts, so you can learn that every model, whether large language for generative AI or for traditional AI, it's always the data. So where is that data? Transparency in data collection is key. Data breaches. So this is more specific to security than compliance. Data breaches can what? Cause significant damage. Right? Data breaches and misuse. So let me rephrase. Data breaches can include attacks known as data poisoning. They can poison the data that the AI assistant is using. Misuse. How many of you are familiar with insider risk? Using the Zoom chat. How many of you are familiar with insider risks? If you are, post a number 1 in the chat window. Anyone? Insider risks. Brad? Yeah. So think of this misuse, which could be insider risk associated with AI application development. What's to stop me, your data scientist that works with your machine learning engineers, from disproportioning the data to get my outcome, what I want? There must be some compliance tools that are continuously and incrementally making us aware of anomalous behavior. And if these patterns potentially can become insider risk, then this is something where compliance experts, which are auditors, should work with security experts that are domain experts to find out where there's this potential for misuse, which are major risks associated with AI development. balancing innovation with privacy protection. As we all know, AI has the potential to transform, but it's important to balance its transformative nature with privacy. And there are currently ethical guidelines in place now that is a global standard, not my organization's policies, but an organizational standard, a best practice, if you will. While it may not always align with our standard operating procedures, they should be embraced by our company culture and adopted by leadership because it always comes from the top down. And if leadership does not want to provide data governance where they can centralize no matter the obstacles they face in terms of overall costs, how can we then balance innovation with privacy when privacy is being placed as last? While privacy and innovation should both be first. It should be a balance. But in order to implement this, we need from the top down that adoption to drive it. And that top down in its adoption should lead the way by supporting innovation to learn that technologies limits to better understand. They should also be skilled. If they do not progress and they stay with traditional technologies, then no matter what nuance you bring to the organization to drive efficiency, they will never master the technology enough to find that balance. So it's important that our very leaders drive this. This requires everybody skilling. It requires skilling, not just from something that you offer to your business partners and your customers, but it requires skilling from our very leaders. And we're not just referring to technical titled leaders, but we're also referring to other business units who are what? Very officers. If your CEO is not embracing AI, how or why would the rest of the company follow? Let me rephrase it another way. If they're not skilling themselves and mastering it and talking about it and breathing it every day, why would your employees want to skill themselves in the very technology that you yourself are not using and leading by example? Nevertheless, skilling is key, isn't it? But skilling alone isn't going to cut it. If you're going to skill yourself in using AI, you have to skill yourself in what? The very guidelines that will help ensure that balance. And that guideline is the NIST AI RMF. That is the National Institute of Standards and Technologies Artificial Intelligence Risk Management Framework. I have to ask, well, I'm going to log into another technology just to share and hopefully amaze you with something new. Please, using the chat window, how many of you have actually read the NIST AI RMF? Please be candid using the chat window. How many of you have read it? Throw a number 1 in the chat. I've read it. You can be honest and throw a number 0 and say, no, I have never read that. Not everyone has. Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for participating. I see some posts in the chat. That is very helpful. I do appreciate anyone who participates. It really does help not just us in this webinar, but others. So consider, if you really just don't know how to answer that, then I'm going to assume that if you did not participate by answering, then maybe you're not even aware what the NIST AI RMF is. Or maybe it's something that you heard on passing, right? Hearsay. Or maybe it's an idea. But I need to make this abundantly clear. The NIST AI RMF is a global standard, and it is a standard that's being used to help not just use, but to implement AI as a responsible solution from end to end. And I humbly recommend, if you have not had the opportunity, better yet, the privilege to read the NIST AI RMF, that you do so eventually, maybe after this session. Why? Because it's that important. It's that important that you understand the actual best practices. So any information that I've imparted to you in this webinar, while brief, is based off of NIST, and it should be a best practice. Now, you can find NIST's AI RMF and the executive order on safe and secure trustworthy AI by going to NIST's page. Here's a link. I'll post this in the chat window for everyone. That way, after this session, using that link, please take some time, review it. It's important. And I would go as far as downloading the document. You can see I'm sharing with you a document, and download it. So that way you can review, and you can review all of the what? Different functions. In today's webinar, we're addressing, albeit at a very high level, the governance function. The governance function. That's right. That is what we're accessing, the governance function. So if you haven't had an opportunity to do so, I humbly recommend that when you can, that you access that document. Furthermore, so as we talk about ensuring compliance with NIST AI RMF, I wanted to share with you this overview, albeit high level, first, of how technology from Microsoft to Amazon Web Services to Google Cloud are also helping drive NIST. This technology that I'm sharing with you is known as Microsoft's Purview. I'm going to select regulation. And upon selecting regulation, I am going to look from the 383 items for the NIST AI RMF. And I can see that there is a regulation known as the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, which upon selection shows me the different functions. There's the governance function. I'm going to expand the governance function. And upon expanding the governance function, I can actually see that there is a control, and the control name is continuous monitoring and governance. So this is the very control that will help us understand on what we should do and what we should collect in order to ensure that our AI assistant and our AI solutions that are being developed probably as we speak, that they are what? Governed. And what's encompassed in governance is, of course, explained in step-by-step guidance in these compliance tools for compliance auditors. And as we can see, there's some actions that would need to be taken. Investigate risk management activities. So it tells us exactly what we need to do and how to implement it. And any other related controls. Ongoing monitoring and management of processes and outcomes. So it provides a step-by-step information. So that way we can go and implement. Now, here's something to note. You'll be able to, as a compliance auditor, create compliance assessments. And as a security expert, whatever is documented in the compliance assessment that requires a control be enforced, that is where the security expert comes in. To enforce the control, the compliance auditor will need to verify that the cybersecurity expert has actually conformed to that control and that they can substantiate proof. Why? If you want to balance innovation and privacy, you need to provide end-to-end governance. Again, end-to-end governance. Lastly, as we talk about end-to-end governance, be aware that you can develop AI solutions as a business user, not be a developer, and still ensure that the very controls that you need to enforce from the governance function are adhered to. As I scroll down past one and I go to view others, I'll read one and we'll move forward before the end of this session in 10 minutes. This one states risk management, comma, governance, comma, data, comma, documentation. So it's important that we document, identify, and preserve and review data. So it's important that I read that out loud. Identify, preserve, and collect data from AI interactions for regulatory and legal reasons. So are you able to provide end-to-end governance on the data that's being used by either the AI application that you have implemented? Remember, here's a view of that data, diabetes data set. I don't need to go to the cloud in this example to start to create my own machine learning for AI or generative AI. I can do this from my local machine. But the same code that I'm using here is the very same code that I would use using Microsoft, Amazon, or Google's tools to help build my own AI solution or generative AI. Nevertheless, are you able to identify, preserve, and collect data from all AI interactions? That also includes the large language models data source. And furthermore, what about the data being used by applications? Applications that you can visit on the web that are already published, that you can access. Here's an example. There's an AI application that I'm using, and here are the data sources. A SharePoint site, NIST documentation, a website, So data and files are being used. Are you testing the app? So remember, end to end. Before that AI is what? Deployed in different systems like telephony or in Teams, in unique websites, in custom websites, in mobile apps, in Slack, in Facebook. It goes on and on. All those AI assistants use data. So it's important to know where that data is. And understanding the data source will help you better understand how that data is fair or is it biased? Do you have your data cataloged so you understand the data products? Do you have visibility of the data? So make sure that the data that's being used, that you have complete transparency, accountability, so you can provide data governance and ultimately be able to analyze periodically the quality of your data. Understanding how the data is distributed, hence its quality, will help us further understand that data's distribution. And if the data is disproportionately distributed, consider, as you can see in this example, its distribution may influence a data set used in health to help millions with diabetes. So the NIST framework is a risk management framework for AI, and it provides a systematic approach to managing the risks associated with AI utilization and AI implementation using a relevant global regulation. Achieving compliance involves a number of steps, including identifying AI systems and its risks, and selecting appropriate controls and monitoring and auditing the system. Consider we only reviewed at a high level the NIST govern function. Determine how trustworthy your AI system. Uncover potential sources of unfairness. Complete a regulatory audit of an AI system. So this way you can validate model and other components. Data, everyone, is a huge blind spot for traditional model performance metrics. An example, what if what you're choosing, generative or traditional, have a high accuracy score, but that doesn't always reflect the underlying data bias that could be in your data example. For example, if a data set of employees has 27% of women in executive positions in a company and 73% of men at the same level. Consider what I just said, 27% of women in executive positions and 73% of men at the same level. If this was a job advertising AI model with generative AI application, and it's trained on that data, 27% women, 73% men. Think about this for a moment. on this data may target mostly a male audience for senior level positions. Why? The imbalance, 27% women, 73% men. That's its simplest form. That imbalance in data skewed the model's behavior to favor one gender over another. That is a simple but factual example that reveals a fairness issue where there's a gender bias in an AI model. So we need to identify areas where there's an over and under representation in the data, that distribution that I kept uttering. It helps us diagnose the root of fairness issues and introduces data imbalances or lack of representation of a particular group. So there's best practices. Data anonymization. You can anonymize the data, encrypting data. Data anonymization and encryption can protect personal information from unauthorized access and misuse. Robust access controls are essential for protecting personal information. Continuous monitoring and auditing is crucial based off of NIST AI RMF governance function. So that brings us to the conclusion of this 1 hour brief, but I hope you learned something new webinar. Using the chat window, if you learned something new, can you post in the chat window you learned something new or you saw something new? Yes. If you didn't learn anything new, let me know using the chat window. Did you learn something new? Post a number 1 in the chat room window. Thank you, Mir. I know, Brad. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. The VS Code, it's pretty amazing. So I humbly request that all of you join us for a free cybersecurity webinar to stay ahead of the latest trends. Test your knowledge, have fun. We have cybersecurity quizzes for chances to win. You know what? Anna can do it better than I. Anna, if you don't mind, you want to explain what we have to offer?
Hi, thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you all. Thank you for the session. So everybody should know that October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So we do have some initiatives. If you have a lot of tech talks, free cybersecurity webinars this month. Also, you need to test your knowledge, and we have our quiz. It's very, very fun, and you can win an Amazon gift card. Also, we do have some training programs designed for you, and we will have also, if you can change for the next slide, we will have a Cisco course giveaway this month. That is very, very important, and it's a very special opportunity for you all. So if you sign up in the month of October, you will have a chance to win a free Cisco Security Digital course. In the website, you will have all the list for the courses that will be eligible. So please visit here our cybersecurity landing page. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. We'll see you in our next webinar. Take care.
If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.